Welcome back to the TVC Collector. This is going to be for March 28th. Wanted to go over some recent sales and things that are going on in the vintage collection. So let's just get right into it. First up, we had a Tonica sister, Bria Tonica, and this one was actually on a bid. So this one went for a little bit cheaper than what we've been seeing them go for. These things, if you do a buy it now, these are consistently going for between 125 and 150. This one went for 113.50 plus another 8 to ship. So if you can catch one on a bid, you're going to get it a few bucks cheaper anyway. But they're still holding their retail value very, very well, and probably always will, being that they're a HasLab exclusive. Next up, we had a rocket firing Boba Fett. This was the mail away offer from 2010. This is an unpunched. He actually had the shipper box with it. So that was a really nice one. Here again, went on a bid from the same seller from 104.50 plus another 12 bucks to ship that. So you're looking around in the 116, 117 range, something like that. There was another one of these that sold as well from a different seller, and this one had the actual outer box with it. So, if you weren't aware of these, they actually came with a shipper box, and then they came in a mailer box inside. The shipper box was in the mailer box. So that one went for, looks like about 103 shipped. So still roughly about 100 bucks on those, give or take a little bit. Um, then we get the Clone Commander Cody, the 2010. Now this was a punched example, but it did look pretty nice, and the seller had it listed for $130 with 850 on the shipping, and he took $100 for it. So 108.50 is what that guy went for. Next up, we had a Ahsoka Tano. This is the very first release, the original 1.0 release, and this one went for 125 with free shipping, unpunched card. Looked like it was pretty straight as well. Not a lot of bowing into that card, so that's about what they're going for. Man, at their pinnacle, I think I saw one of these sell for $700. And this a long time ago. I guess it seems like it's been 2021 or 2022 since they were that high, and then they have just come down and down and down because Hasbro re-released it. So, but yeah, in the $125 range, if you're getting an unpunched one, the punch ones are going to go for quite substantially cheaper if you want the original 1.0 release. Then next up, man, we had a grading extravaganza on this particular day. This is just insane, the amount of graded figures that sold on this particular day. So here's the Ahsoka Tano, the VC297. This is the same version of Ahsoka that came out on the Mandalorian card when Ahsoka series was coming back out. They just repacked the same figure. But at any rate, it's an uncirculated 8.5, and the best offer accepted on this was 50 bucks. So 50 bucks for an uncirculated 8.5, plus you're dealing with about 19.50, about $20 in shipping, so about 75 bucks. Well, about $70 to ship that figure. That's a pretty good deal on that. And man, it just goes on and on and on. So we also had a Din Djarin. Here again, uncirculated. That's what the U stands for if you're not familiar. Uncirculated 8.5 VC251. This seller had it here again for $89.99. $50 accepted was the best offer accepted on that. So here again, about another $70 graded figure. Then we move into the Attack of the Clones. Same figure, had a AFA 8.5. The best offer accepted on this was $60. Now this one's not uncirculated, but this is the re-release. This is the 2022 version. But here again, what is that, about a $80 figure for that graded in acrylic? I mean, those are hard to beat prices. Next up, uncirculated 8.5 graded Yoda. This one also, best offer accepted on it was $60. And again with the shipping, so that's going to be about 80 bucks for that. Then we move up into the 9.0s. We had a Book of Boba Fett Fennec Shand. I like this figure. Actually, this face sculpt on this figure looks exactly like Namen Wing. It is incredible how good of a job they did on that. I have a 9.25 in this particular figure. But anyway, the seller was asking for $109.99. They actually accepted it was $75 accepted. So with the $20 shipping, you're talking about 95 for a 9.0 graded figure shipped to your door. So that's not a bad deal at all. Next up, I had a Dr. Afra VC129 graded AFA 8.5. This one has the label on the bottom. Some people like the label on the bottom. Some people like the label on the top. I'm the label on the top kind of guy. But Dr. Afra VC129, this is not the European figure. If you're looking for the European figure, goes for a lot more money. Does not have a warning label covering the Hildebrandt logo. It was from Europe. So just keep aware there are two of these. This is the North American release on this, and the best offer accepted on this was $85, and so 95 here again, $95 shipped to your door. Then we get into this was a nice one. I love Yavin Luke. This was an uncirculated 9.0 that came from Power Droid. So $100 plus 11 shipping, so about 111 for a 9.0 graded uncirculated 9.0. Then he had a whole bunch of these. I guess he got somebody's collection or something and was selling them. So this was a Rise of Skywalker, the Sith Trooper. Uncirculated 9.25. Man, that's nice. So 129, so 130 here again, about 140 shipped. Then next up, we have this is one of my favorites. So this is the first release, uncirculated 9.25 R2D2 VC 149. This was the 2019 release, and it is the dirty R2. They just released this in 2025 last year, and it's the clean version. So there is a variant to this. They're both 149. They were released multiple years apart. One of them's clean, one of them's dirty. I have them both. I believe I have a 9.5 in my clean one, and I think I have a 9.25 in my dirty one. So just like that. But I love this figure. It's one of my favorite figures. This is the 96er. And, anytime they do a variant, I had to have both, so I got both. Next up, this was a 9.5 uncirculated. So Knights of Ren, uncirculated 9.5 2020. I'm not much of a sequel person, but a lot of people like them. But, anything 9.5, I mean, that's almost as good as it gets. That's pretty much near perfect as far as what that goes for. So, and the price reflected that 170 plus another $11, so about $180 shipped. So next up we had, now this is where we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. This is nothing against the seller, nothing against the buyer. This is an AFA thing, which just drives me up the wall. So this one had a Darth Malgus AFA 9.2. This is a original 1.0 figure. This is a new thing that AFA has been doing here in the last, I don't know, probably say 6 months that they offered this. These grades, as you've seen, for modern grades, you can just get the 8.5, 9.0, 9.25. If you like the old Kenner style, I have a couple of my old Kenner figures. So the 1985, this was the Imperial Dignitary. And in the old style, the way they did it was that they graded the card, the blister, and the figure itself, and then each of those subscores they give you a total score. If you happen to be a CAS and people like to get CAS, I have the Luke Skywalker Battle Poncho from 1984 Power of the Force, and they do the same thing. Card, bubble, figure for an overall score of 75. So we would call this a COS 75. We would call this a AFA 80. And again, as we sit here and looked at all these other figures, they have a particular score on them, 9.5. This is the modern version of grading for AFA. You can do this if you want to pay the extra bucks for it. So just for standard grading, just to give you all a little information on this, standard grading for a modern figure is $45, and that's what the standard modern grade. If you want to pay the extra money, they will do the sub-level grading for you, and it's $70. It's the same price as a Kenner figure. So that's the way that it's always been up until about 6 months ago. Now they've introduced this new way of doing it, which they're still doing the subgrades. This is the way they do it for comic books, though. And so now all of a sudden, for modern, we've had 8.5s, 9.0s, 9.25s, 9.5s, even a 9.75. But now we've got 9.2s, 9.4s and 9.6s, and I just really don't like this. I think the AFA made a big mistake doing this. I think it waters the whiskey down, so to speak. That, it can be confusing because now you're trying to compare this to modern, and it's like, well, what do I have? Is this the equivalent of a 9.0? Is it the equivalent of a 9.5? I mean, it's just very confusing. And so I really, they should have stuck this is what they do with comic books. I think 9.8 is the best you can kind of get. Well, 10.0 obviously would be the best you can get a comic book, but 9.8 is pretty much near mint. I mean, that's like, one minor issue with it, just keeping it from being, perfect. And so this grading system, obviously, if, some people like it, I think it's confusing when we've already had the two sets of grades. And when you go on the population report for AFA, by the way, if you go on the population report and you look at any figure, you're going to see the original way of grading it, which was again the card bubble figure. So those are up at the top of the population report for AFA. I'm not sure about CIS because I don't use them. But then below you have the modern grade. So there's already on the population report, there's already, you may have a 9.5 down here, and then up at the top you may have a 95, right? Because of the two different methods. So I don't know if they're going to update the population report now to reflect a third category. So I don't like this. I'm not a big fan of it. Again, somebody wanted Darth Malgus and you wanted a graded figure. Hey, congrats, you got it. I'm not knocking you at all. I'm just saying, me as a personal preference, I really don't like this new grading system, and I wish that AFA had not done that. So, but at any rate, that's what it sold for. It sold for 150 bucks, so 163, and he got I'm trying to tell. I think that is unpunched. Yeah, it's unpunched. So an unpunched Darth Malgus VC96 is a 1.0 figure from about 2011 or 2012. I think that was 2012 was when that one came out. Yeah, it's 2012. It says so right there. So anyway, enough about AFA. There was a whole bunch of grading that just went on. This is just one day for March 28th. There was a whole lot of grading that went on. So graded figures that sold for this particular day. So. Let's get moving on. We have a couple of other pieces I want to get away from the figures for a minute, and we'll look at some multi-packs and some play sets. So here's the Jabba. This here again went down in Australia. So the price on it was 141.86. Again, don't know exactly what the shipping cost was because it shows the shipping, what a shipping would have been to me in the US, but presumably they sold it locally. Let's probably say 10, 15 bucks maybe for shipping. So about $150 for the playset. That's what they're going for in Australia. They're still here. They're still running about $100 here in the United States. So big difference between here and down under, about $50 difference there. This was a big number. So this was the Book of Boba throne room, and this went for 350 US dollars, 480 Canadian, and it was because it was in Quebec, Canada. So I'm not even going to pronounce this. Saint, was that Gideon? Not even going to try. Anyway, $350. Don't know what the shipping was, but that's quite substantially a lot more money in Canada. I guess they're harder to get your hands on than they are here in the U.S. Here in the U.S., you can get these anywhere from 225 to 250. So I guess Canadians, and maybe you have to pay the import fees as well if you're going to, buy them from the U.S., but they are substantially cheaper here. So. Next up, we had a Boba Fett starship, which we all know is really the Slave One. This one went for 112. I do believe this is factory sealed, so 112 plus another 11 to ship it. So let's just call that 125, and that's not bad for a factory sealed, Boba Fett starship. I have seen these at various times because these came out in what 2021, 2022, I believe. Um, I've seen these at various times, like Amazon had some on clearance a few years ago that were like 99. That's about as cheap as I've seen them. So this is a really good price because they retailed for 199 when they first came out. So $125 for a factory sealed Boba Fett starship from the Book of Boba. That's a really good deal. Moving on, this is the actual Slave One. Look, see, it says Slave One, Hasbro. It will always be Slave One Disney because we have the box to prove it. Anyway, this went for 172.99. This is not the 2013 Amazon exclusive. This is the When did they come out? 2020, 2021? I think it was 2021 is when this ESB came out. And then the very next year, they repainted it in the same ship, but they repainted it in the Book of Boba figure colors. So it's slightly a different paint schema, and it came with the Tuscan, tribe Boba Fett. But this is the actual ESB and the ESB packaging, and I love this packaging. I have a super mint one of these. I've thought about grading it, but I don't really do graded vehicles because they're expensive. You got to ship them in and pay for a lot of grading and then ship them back, which is a lot of grading and also. But anyway, love this. It's got the Bespin guards in there loading up the Han Solo. So this is just an awesome, awesome ship. So moving on, got a couple of other ones, and before we wrap it up, these were the original 1.0 Y-wing and B-wing. And I say the original; they haven't re-released these yet. So both from Return of the Jedi. This seller had this listed for $299 with free shipping. The best offer accepted on it was $275. Now, what's interesting about these is these were both opened. In fact, he says down in the comments that they've been displayed. So he's had them on display, but apparently he kept all the baggies and everything. And so he put everything back together. Um, Looks like he did a pretty good job of it too. He's like he put all of these things nicely and neatly back together. He put the Y-wing pieces back in there where they go, and so put them all back together. And someone bought them for 275. So that's if you're going to open them and display them, I mean, here's a couple of set that was already open. So, um, good deal on that. Lastly, the last thing was the Millennium Falcon, the Smuggler's Run, Galaxy's Edge, 699 shipped. Wow. I remember when these were 450 is what I think they retailed for 450. They were up on the Target shelf, and this one sold for 699, which seems to be about the going rate for these. I have seen, like if you get a super minty one, and this one was actually in the original shipper box too, which looked to be in fairly decent condition as well. So that was a pretty good deal. I've seen these go as close to $800 because that's a heavy ship to ship. Pardon my pun, ship to ship. But anyway, it's a fairly heavy box to ship. So I never did pick up this one. This is the one from Disney. It actually came with Hondo Onaka. If you're not familiar with it, I have the 2008 Legacy Collection version, which is Chef's Kiss Primo. It is perfect. It has the sounds. It has Han. It has Chewie. It has Obi-Wan Luke talking. It even has the hyperdrive failing. It has, gunfire, all the sound effects on it and stuff. So when this came out, I did not bother to buy this one. So, but if you're a TVC collection and you want to buy that, the previous one was in the Legacy Collection, by the way. That was 2008. But they're the same size. They're a really big ship. They're 2.5 feet across, and they're really cool ships. So anyway, that's all I have for now. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. You can hit that little bell with a notification, and you'll get notifications when I publish new videos. And keep collecting the vintage collection, and we'll talk to you next time.